My name is Muhamad Adib Saiful bin Aminuddin. So today we're going to discuss about John Stuart Mill, referring to the greatest happiness. Okay, so first of all, let us recognize who is John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill is the prominent 19th century philosopher, a philosopher with a particular influence in political thought. Wherever you find a debate over freedom of speech and expression, you are certain to find direct or indirectly influences from Mill. He was a prototype advocate of personal liberty and limited government authority, a position based on his highly developed utilitarian ethics, which in turn draws from his empirical approach to logic and knowledge. So there are many works on this subject. Mill wrote many works on many subjects. Among his most enduring efforts there are many, which is system of logic, on liberty, consideration of representative government, utilitarianism, and also the subjection of women. Alright, so before we jumping to the greatest happiness that being emphasized by John Stuart Mill, let us first know about utilitarianism because it is related closely with the greatest happiness. Alright, so first, what is utilitarianism? So utilitarianism is a modern moral philosophy which is dominated by two types of ethical theories. First, deontological ethics, which is based on reason, intention, and duty. Usually it is derived from the work of Immanuel Kant. And another one is consequentialist ethics. So consequentialist ethics is based on the effects, based on consequences of actions. So utilitarianism is the primary form of consequentialist ethics. Why he developed this kind of ethics, this kind of theory? So Mill developed a powerful conception of ethical values based on the consequences of actions. He clearly defined which consequences would count in determining an action, right or wrong. There are pleasure and pain. All living things seek pleasures and avoid pain, right? Since the business of ethics is to produce the best possible world, the goal will be to maximize the total amount of pleasure in the world and minimize the total amount of pain. Alright, so there are a few examples that have been proposed by John Stuart Mill. At first, this may sound trivial or even perverse. There's some people who regard pleasure as usually connected to something immoral. What meant by Mill is that pleasure and pain in its most basic way. So for example, hunger causes pain, right? So hunger is an evil. On Mill's account, preventable death is a deprivation of pleasure, and so counts as an evil. 20,000 people die from hunger every day. So most of them is children, and many of them children, there is a lot of pain. For example, in the United States, alright, so we throw more edible food in the garbage each day than it will take to feed the 20,000 people who will die that day for lack of food. So it shows that they in the US have a surplus of pleasure, alright. So Mill's major moral point is that we must judge the ethical value of actions on the overall consequences it has for people in terms of pleasure and pain. So the greatest happiness principle holds that the more pleasure and the least pain an action causes, the better it is morally, right? So we should seek to perform those actions and adopt those policies that lead to the greatest happiness. So the example of distributing food to starving people would decrease much pain, so we ought to do it. Alright, so to conclude, so utilitarianism theory is emphasizing about what of the highest importance in life, number one. Number two is what makes actions right or wrong. So for example that be given, you might want to go through pain just to achieve pleasure for future or to others. Alright, so the greatest happiness here shows that the happiness doesn't just for ourselves, but giving happiness to others is the greatest happiness that been emphasized by John Stuart Mill. Right. So it shows that happiness can be judged based on whether it promotes or detract from happiness. So that's how we define the greatest happiness, which been emphasized by John Stuart Mill. Alright, so it shows that utilitarianism is one of the most powerful moral ideas around, right? John Stuart Mill gave the clearest and most sophisticated account of that philosophical theory. Keep the element of this view in mind, and you are liable to hear someone use them to justify an action before long. Alright, that's all for me. See you again. Thank you very much, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.